We're at it again, June 23rd. This time we're going back to Flowery Branch to install the part that we diagnosed yesterday. Go ahead and get that. We got a wonderful sunny day, 76 degrees at 8:55. The ride is going to be kind of congested. Looks like it's an hour, 20-minute ride. I got off to a late start. It appears that the parts distributor didn't have the part ready, so I had to sit there and wait for 30 minutes. So I'm 30 minutes behind my schedule. I should have been there. Should be pulling up now, putting it in the part, but I'm just not getting now because they didn't have the part ready at the time I walked in the door. Typical parts distributors. Never on time. Can't do shit right. Now I'm in traffic with people who don't give a fuck. Driving slower than molasses. As I hit the Flowery Branch. This guy here trying to go fast.
Like a fool, I went and stayed too long.
In the summer of 1972, a group of musicians showed up to work. They walked to the door of Hitsville, USA, the studio that had given America its greatest soul music, and found a note taped to the door. Session canceled. We'll reschedule. There was no reschedule. There was no goodbye. Motown was gone. Today we go inside the 10 real reasons it happened. The riots, the lawsuits, the broken promises, the Hollywood obsession, and the artists who got left behind. This is how Hitsville became Hollywood. Number 10, the Detroit riots of 1967. Before we talk about the move, we have to talk about the fire. July 23, 1967, Detroit. It started at 4 in the morning. Police raided an unlicensed after-hours bar on 12th Street, arrested 82 people, and a crowd gathered outside. What followed was 6 days of the deadliest civil unrest in American history to that point. 43 people killed, over 1,000 injured, more than 7,000 people arrested. The National Guard was deployed. The U.S. Army was deployed. And for the first time in years, the studio at 2648 West Grand Boulevard went completely silent. Motown was near the epicenter. The label had 8 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 that week, including 2 in the top 20. Berry Gordy received threatening phone calls at the label during the riots. The staff was terrified. Martha Reeves, whose song Dancing in the Street had been released 3 years earlier as a pure celebration of summer, watched from inside as her city burned. She said years later, "You can't live in this world and not be affected by the things that surround us." Dancing in the Street would later be reinterpreted by civil rights scholars as a coded anthem of protest. Martha always maintained it was about joy, about summer, about freedom. But in July 1967, freedom in Detroit was not guaranteed. The riots were the first crack in the foundation. Mary Wilson of the Supremes wrote in her memoir, Supreme Faith, that the unrest was part of the initial impetus for Motown's move west. Berry Gordy had already opened a Los Angeles office in 1963, but after 1967, the city he had built his empire in felt less like home. The street was no longer dancing, and Berry Gordy was already looking toward the exit. Number 9, Holland Dozier, Holland Walk Out. Imagine losing your entire hit-making engine in a single day. That's what happened to Berry Gordy in 1968. Won't you stop? Holland Dozier, Holland. 3 names that should be on every list of the greatest songwriters in American music history. Brian Holland, Lamont Dozier, Eddie Holland. Between 1963 and 1967, 5 years, they wrote and produced over 50 top 10 pop and R&B hits. 12 number ones for the Supremes alone. Stop, In the Name of Love, Baby Love, You Keep Me Hanging On, Reach Out, I'll Be There for the Four Tops. Heat Wave for Martha and the Vandellas, How Sweet It Is, Bernadette, Where Did Our Love Go? Mary Wilson of the Supremes said it plainly in a Washington Post interview in 1986. Holland Dozier, Holland left, and the sound was gone. In late 1967, the team stopped submitting songs to Motown. They had spent years watching their royalty checks arrive without royalties from Motown, publishing arm, Jobet. They believed they were being underpaid. They were right. Eddie Holland later said in a Billboard interview that the moment he saw Brian's royalty check for co-writing and co-producing Please Mr. Postman, he realized he was on the wrong side of the business. By early 1968, they were gone. Gordy sued them for breach of contract. They countersued. The litigation dragged on for nearly 10 years. Because Holland Dozier Holland were contractually locked to Motown's publishing arm, they couldn't even use their own names on new songs for a while. They wrote under the pseudonym Edith Wayne to work around the injunction. The label that replaced them, they formed their own, Invictus Records and Hot Wax Records, both in Detroit, scoring hits with Freda Payne's Band of Gold and the chairman of the board's Give Me Just a Little More Time. Before you break my heart. Gordy's greatest hit factory, operating across the street without him. The departure of Holland Dozier Holland was not just a business loss. It was the moment Motown's specific, irreplaceable sound began to dissolve, and Gordy knew it. Listen, 90% of you watching these videos right now ain't subscribed yet. If these stories are blowing your mind, imagine what you're missing. Hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and join the R&B fans who never miss a Groove Lens upload. Number 8, Marvin Gaye goes on strike. This is the story of a genius who had to go on strike to get his own label to release the greatest album they would ever put out. It is 1970. Marvin Gaye is married to Berry Gordy's sister, Anna.
Brother, there's far too many.
His singing partner, Tammy Terrell collapsed on stage in his arms in 1967 from a brain tumor she would die from in 1970. His marriage is falling apart. His country is at war. His brother Frankie came home from Vietnam and couldn't stop talking about what he'd seen. Gaye entered Hitsville, USA on June 1, 1970 to record a song written by Four Tops member Obie Benson about police brutality. Benson had witnessed in Berkeley, California. Gaye rewrote it, made it his own, added streets, ghetto, war, grief, recorded it in a way nobody at Motown had ever recorded anything.
Talk to me, running through you.
Then he walked it into Berry Gordy's office. Gordy called it, and this is a direct quote, "the worst thing I ever heard in my life." He told Gaye the jazz scatting in the middle was old. He said Motown didn't do protest records. He refused to release it. Marvin Gaye went on strike. He refused to record another note until Gordy released What's Going On. 8 months into the standoff, Motown's A&R head, Harry Balk, desperate for new Gaye product, went behind Gordy's back. He directed sales vice president Barney Ailes to press 100,000 copies of the single and ship them to radio stations across the country without Gordy's knowledge or approval. The song sold over 200,000 copies in a single week, fastest selling Motown single in history up to that point. Gordy drove to Gaye's home and told him to make whatever album he wanted. Get it done in 30 days. What's Going On was released May 21, 1971. It is consistently ranked the greatest album ever made. Rolling Stone called it the #1 album of all time in 2020.
Let's go.
3 singles, all #1 on the R&B chart. What's Going On? Mercy, Mercy Me, Inner City Blues. Marvin Gaye became the first male artist to place 3 top 10 singles on the Hot 100 from a single album. Gordy was so uncomfortable with its politics, he released it not on Motown proper, but on the subsidiary label Tamla. He didn't want his name on it. And then it became the greatest album in his company's history. That is the contradiction that helped push Berry Gordy toward Hollywood, a place where he could control the story. Number 7, the Funk Brothers Find a Note on the Door.
When it was cold outside.
They played on more #1 records than the Beatles, Elvis Presley, the Beach Boys, and the Rolling Stones combined, and most people had never heard their names. The Funk Brothers, Detroit's greatest secret, James Jamerson on bass, Benny Benjamin on drums, Earl Van Dyke on keys, Robert White on guitar, Jack Ashford on percussion. They called their basement recording space at Hitsville the Snake Pit. They would play jazz clubs all night at venues like the Flame and the 20 Grand, then walk into Studio A in the morning and create hits.
When it was cold outside.
James Jamerson played the bass line on My Girl, on I Heard It Through the Grapevine, on Reach Out, I'll Be There, on What's Going on nearly every Motown record made between 1962 and 1968. He was not credited on a single one. Berry Gordy kept them anonymous, paid them union scale, about $52.50 per session. No royalties, no credit, no acknowledgement. Marvin Gaye was the first artist to list their names on the liner notes of What's Going On in 1971. 1 year later, it was over. On a June morning in 1972, members of the Funk Brothers arrived at Hitsville, USA to play a scheduled session. They found a note on the studio door. Session canceled. Will reschedule. There was no reschedule. The Washington Post confirmed it decades later. When Motown suddenly packed up and relocated to Los Angeles in 1972, the musicians learned of the move only when they showed up at Studio A and found a notice on the door. Session canceled. Will reschedule. California already had plenty of session musicians. The Funk Brothers were not invited. James Jamerson followed the label to Los Angeles anyway. He could not navigate the new scene. The style was different. The networks were different. He was no longer the heartbeat of anything. He descended into alcoholism and depression. He was hospitalized several times. James Jamerson died on August 2nd, 1983. He was 47 years old, largely forgotten. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted him in 2000, 17 years after his death. The Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award came in 2004. Benny Benjamin, the drummer, had already died of a stroke in 1969, age 43. Richard Pistol Allen and Johnny Griffith both passed away within months of the 2002 documentary Standing in the Shadows of Motown, which finally told the world who had made the music it loved. They never fully experienced the recognition they had earned. Detroit built the sound. Los Angeles didn't need it. Number 6, the Four Tops Get Fired. The Four Tops, 1965. The Four Tops had been with Motown since 1963. 9 years, 30 singles. Levi Stubbs, Abdul Duke Fakir, Ronaldo Obi Benson, Lawrence Payton. I Can't Help Myself. Reach Out, I'll Be There, Bernadette. Standing in the Shadows of Love. Baby, I Need Your Loving. One of the most consistent hit-making groups in Motown history. And unlike most of the label's acts, they were Detroit to the bone. When Berry Gordy announced the move to Los Angeles, the Four Tops made their position clear. They didn't want to go. They were Detroit men. Their families were there. Their community was there. The city was in their sound. Ewart Abner, the new president of Motown's recording division, heard their decision and fired them. That was it. 9 years. 3 decades of hits in the making. And because they wouldn't leave Detroit, they were cut loose. They bounced back. In 1973, the year after being dropped, they signed with ABC Dunhill Records and released Ain't No Woman Like the One I've Got. It hit number 4 on the pop chart, number 1 R&B, but they never sounded quite the same, and Motown was never quite the same without them. Levi Stubbs once said, Motown was a family until it wasn't. The Four Tops refused to leave Detroit. Motown left them. Number 5, Gladys Knight Walks Out. There is no more fitting farewell in the history of American music than the one Gladys Knight delivered to Berry Gordy.
It's sad to
Willingly or not, Gladys Knight and the Pips had been at Motown since 1966, and despite having the voice, arguably the greatest female soul voice the label ever housed, they were consistently treated as second tier. Diana Ross got the film deals. Diana Ross got the promotion. Diana Ross got the cover of Life magazine. Gladys Knight got told to wait. William Guest of the Pips said it plainly. It was a pleasure to get up and go to work. Many people would come down even if they weren't scheduled that day and just hang out. It was like one big family. That family, however, had favorites. In 1973, Butter Records came with a deal worth close to $1 million. Gladys Knight said later that had Motown matched it, they would have stayed. Motown didn't match it. Before she left, the group recorded one final single for the label. Neither one of us wants to be the first to say goodbye. A slow, aching ballad about two people who know a relationship is over but can't bring themselves to end it. It won the Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance by a duo or group in 1973. It hit number 2 pop and number 4 R&B. Gladys Knight said years later that neither one of us was exactly what she wanted to say to Motown after 7 years on the label. It was their goodbye, and they let the song say it for them. At Buddha Records, with creative freedom and a real budget, Gladys Knight and the Pips recorded Midnight Train to Georgia, number 1 pop, number 1 R&B.
when it comes to saying goodbye.
Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group. The song Motown never got to put out.
So we just go on.
Number 4, Berry Gordy's Hollywood Obsession. Here is the truth nobody in the Motown story wants to say out loud. Berry Gordy did not move to Los Angeles for the music. He moved for the movies. He moved because he was in love with Diana Ross. And because he believed Diana Ross deserved to be a movie star. Gordy had shaped Diana Ross's career from the inside of the Supremes, pushing her to the front, giving her the best songs, making her the face of everything Motown touched.
Never worry. No way, no way.
When Diana went solo in 1970 and released Ain't No Mountain High Enough, it hit number 1 pop, number 1 R&B. But Gordy wanted more. He wanted to produce a biopic about Billie Holiday starring Diana Ross.
Can't stop me, babe.
In the early 1970s, that was radical. A black-owned company producing a major Hollywood film starring a black woman in the role of one of the most complex and tragic figures in music history. Gordy bought out Paramount's interest in the project himself when the deal got complicated. Diana Ross studied Billie Holiday obsessively. Motown executives.
All right, we're done with this job. Now we go home, take me a nice shower, and I think what I probably work on some of these musculars. Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
who owned that year, poured everything they had into records that still stop you cold the moment you hear them.
I stumbled on this photograph.
Welcome to R&B Archive, the channel that goes back, digs deep, and brings the real stories out of the shadows. And today we are counting down 12 forgotten soul hits from 1979 that defined a generation, broke records, launched legends, and carry secrets that most people have never heard.
Back down memory lane.
Some of these songs were born from heartbreak, some from desperation, some from pure genius that nearly got buried before ever got a chance to hear it. And every single one of them has a true story behind it that is more extraordinary than the hit itself. Number 12, Cheryl Lynn, Got to Be Real. She walked onto The Gong Show, a television program best known for bad acts and louder buzzers, and sang the only secular song she knew, You Are So Beautiful. She brought the house down. The judges did not gong her, they signed her. Cheryl Lynn grew up singing in a Los Angeles church choir, and when Columbia Records came calling after that Gong Show moment, they paired her with David Paich, a man whose own band, Toto, hadn't even released its first record yet, and a Canadian producer named David Foster, who had never won a Grammy in his life. None of them knew what they were about to make. Got to Be Real was born in a single recording session, Cheryl ad-libbing lyrics straight from her real beliefs about love, while Foster tried out piano runs. And Ray Parker Jr. laid down the guitar lines live in the room with her. The first time radio heard it, they paused. Who takes a Gong Show contestant seriously? Radio was slow, but the clubs were not slow. The dance floors locked onto that groove immediately, and by the end of 1978, Got to Be Real had climbed to number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart, her very first single, her very first time in a professional studio. It was nominated for a Grammy for Best R&B Performance. The woman they tried to dismiss became a dance music icon overnight. Number 11, Anita Ward, Ring My Bell. The morning that Ring My Bell went gold, the morning her name was on every radio station in America, Anita Ward had no idea it was even being played. She was a substitute teacher at an elementary school in Memphis, Tennessee, and nobody had called her. The story of how this song exists at all is one of the strangest in pop history. Songwriter Frederick Knight had originally written Ring My Bell for an 11-year-old named Stacy Lattisaw, a completely innocent song about children talking on the telephone. But Lattisaw's label passed on it. Knight needed one final song for Ward's debut album, remembered the demo in his drawer, rewrote it for an adult voice, and handed it to a gospel-trained soprano who still thought of herself as a teacher first and a singer second. The recording required 3 separate studios, 4 engineers, 2 remixers, and what the liner notes described as a midnight mix by Richie Rivera. That laborious production created something that sounded effortless, a pulsing, shimmering groove that radio could not resist. In June 1979, Ring My Bell hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the R&B chart, and the UK singles chart simultaneously. Anita Ward almost turned down her appearance on Wolfman Jack's Midnight Special, the biggest music television show in America, because she had a class to teach the next morning. Her manager talked her into going. She performed. After that night, she never had to substitute teach again. The song that was written for an 11-year-old became one of the defining anthems of the disco era. Number 10, Peaches and Herb, Reunited. Herb Fame had quit the music industry entirely. He had walked away from the charts, away from the studios, away from the name that had briefly made him famous, and gone to work as a police officer in Washington, D.C. He spent 6 years on the force before music pulled him back. The original Peaches, Francine Barker, was gone. Herb's label connected him with a former model named Linda Green, a Washington, D.C. native with a voice that could break your heart on contact. They recorded a forgettable album that went nowhere. Then they called in Freddie Perren, the same man who had just written I Will Survive for Gloria Gaynor, and everything changed. Reunited was the second single from the Too Hot album, considered by Perren himself to be the secret weapon of the whole project. He knew they had something special when Linda Green heard the demo for the first time and immediately began to cry. That raw, immediate emotional response was the song working exactly as intended. It spent 4 weeks at number 1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and the R&B charts simultaneously. A crossover performance that almost never happened for a ballad in the middle of the disco era. It sold over 2 million copies. It was nominated for Song of the Year at the 1980 Grammys. And the man who had been a DC cop 6 years earlier had his name on one of the biggest songs of the entire decade. Number 9.
This is Doug. Can I help you?
Hey, yes, Monroe. This is Mr. Holmes. Mr. Monroe, you remember the house you came in P Street and worked on that refrigerator?
I done worked on so many.
Yeah. You remember you came in? It was about in the back of the refrigerator was making noise.
How long ago was this?
It was in P Street City, just about a month ago.
About a month ago?
Yeah, it was. You remember how you came in and it was in. I mean, the fan, it was making noise. Then you went in the back of it and you said that the fan was ice on it or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's still doing it. It is not. It hasn't stopped, and I didn't change any setting on the refrigerator.
And so, what setting is it on?
I'll tell you. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good. Setting right now is
The number on the left, the freezer.
okay. All right. Number okay, it's on 6.
Positive 6?
Yes. That's the negative, the minus, with the minus sign.
That's your problem right there. Somebody touched that. Put it on positive 5. You turn the heat off.
Okay.
Negative 6 is for somebody that lives in Arizona, a dry environment. And so the heater is not coming on because it thinks it's in a dry environment. And so the ice is not melting. Put it on positive 5 because you do not live in Arizona, you live in Georgia. Is there a swimming pool anywhere around you?
Yeah,
Put it on positive 5. Just set it on the left is wrong.
Okay, place in the refrigerator. Okay, 5. Okay, 5. I got it on.
Positive 5. The number on the left, the freezer number.
Okay. So a positive is like a plus sign, right?
Right. It shouldn't be no positive. As long as the negative is gone. The negative 6 is gone, right?
Yeah, negative. Okay, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, somebody put it too cold and it did exactly what it was told.
Okay, so I got it right now it ain't on 5 on here, it's 4. It skipped 5.
It went from -6 to what? Go back to -6 and see what happens after you push it again.
Okay,
-6, and then what happens?
go to 8.
And then what happens? Hit it again.
Then it go to 10.
-10.
Yeah.
Hit it again.
Okay, it's 12.
It's still negative.
Yeah, 14.
Keep going.
Then it dropped back down to 8.
Oh, right. +8.
Yeah, just the minus sign. It ain't got no positive. It's just jumping. It's. I don't understand. I mean, it's on 8 now, and it ain't got no negative sign.
Okay, then leave it right there for a while.
Okay, but once I take my hand off,
It's going to go back. It's going to go back to the current temperature.
Yeah, go back to 6.
Right, and then that means the heat's going to come on, and it's going to go -6, -7, all the way up, and then go back down to a positive number. So it's got to start where it's at, and then heat up.
Okay.
You understand?
All right, I'll try to work on it. And
Yeah. Let me know something for the end of the day, because somebody put it on -6 and it turned the heat off, and so it just turned the ice.
Okay, well, I definitely appreciate that.
No problem. Let me know.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
best day.
All
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Playing with the buttons. Playing with the buttons. I'm enjoying listening to something. Somebody calls. Now the damn shit gone.
And walked into the A&M studios in Hollywood to record what would become Memory Lane. She already knew she was
I
dying.
see you standing there, such a happy, happy pair
The cancer that had been diagnosed 3 years earlier had spread.
to me. Love would die.
Doctors had given her 6 months to live.
Thought I had forgot the past.
That
Now
prognosis had already been outlived by 2.5 years, and she was still singing. Riperton had one of the most extraordinary voices in the history of recorded music. A 4-octave coloratura soprano that Stevie Wonder described as the voice of a perfect angel.
here am I.
She had been the national spokeswoman for the American Cancer Society.
Gotta go do.
President Jimmy Carter had presented her with a Courage Award at the White House. And through all of it, she never stopped making music. Memory Lane was written with her husband Richard Rudolph, and beneath its surface as a song about the end of a love affair, Riperton embedded something far more personal. The lyric shifts mid-song from heartbreak imagery into raw, desperate cries. I don't want to go. Save me. Now I'm slipping fast. She was not singing about a relationship.
What you think about?
She was singing about her life. The album Minnie was released in May 1979. Minnie Riperton died on July 12, 1979, at age 31, in the arms of her husband, as Stevie Wonder's voice played on a tape recorder nearby, recorded specifically for her final hours, begging her to get well. Her daughter is actress and comedian Maya Rudolph.
Don't let this be.
Memory Lane was still on the chart when she was gone. The world
heard it differently after that.
Faster than the speed of sound.
Number 8, Smokey Robinson, Cruisin'. Before 1979, Smokey Robinson had released 8 solo studio albums and 20 singles, and had not placed a single record in the Billboard Top 20. Not one. His own label had essentially written him off. He was considered a brilliant songwriter and a legendary Motown figure, and a solo artist who simply could not hit. His guitarist Marv Tarplin had handed him a cassette tape in the mid-70s, 5 years before Cruisin' was released, containing the music that would become the backbone of the song. Robinson fell in love with it immediately. He played it in his car, at home, over and over. And he could not find the words to match it. He wrote 2, then 3 entire songs to that music. None of them worked. Then one night, driving down Sunset Boulevard, a 1967 hit by the Rascals came on the radio. And the word hit him. The Rascals had sung about groovin'. Smokey wanted something that rhymed with that feeling. And the word cruisin' unlocked the entire song in minutes. He had a cold during the actual recording session. The song was originally planned as a B-side for a Temptations remake. When Cruisin' was released in August 1979, it climbed all the way to number 4 on the Hot 100. Smokey Robinson's first ever solo top 10 at the age of 39, with a song that had taken 5 years to write and nearly ended up on the wrong side of a record. Number 7, Earth, Wind and Fire. After the Love Has Gone. The chorus of After the Love Has Gone was not written on purpose. David Foster was sitting in a Motown executive's office, halfway through pitching an entirely different project, when Berry Gordy looked at him and said he needed something that combined pop and R&B. Foster sat down at the piano. He had nothing prepared, and then, out of sheer panic, the chorus poured out of him, note for note, exactly as it would appear on the record. He called his co-writer Jay Graydon that same day. They wrote the verse together in under an hour. Then they called Bill Champlin and told him to come over immediately. They needed lyrics. Champlin wrote the words backwards, working out what caused the love to die, before he wrote a single line about the aftermath. The whole song was finished the same day Foster accidentally invented it in someone else's office. Foster had initially recorded it for a different artist. He was producing Bill Champlin at the time and planned to put it on his album. Then he played it for Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire, who fell in love with it immediately. Foster had to go back to Champlin and break the news. The greatest artist in R&B wanted the song. Released in July 1979, After the Love Has Gone reached number 2 on the Hot 100 and won 2 Grammy Awards, Best R&B Vocal Performance by a Group and Best R&B Song. It was David Foster's very first Grammy win. He would go on to win 15 more. All of it started with a chorus he improvised in a meeting he hadn't prepared for. Number 6, Sister Sledge, We Are Family. Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards had never met Sister Sledge when they wrote We Are Family for them. Not once. They wrote the entire song, lyrics, melody, arrangement, based on a single conversation with Atlantic Records president Jerry Greenberg, who described the four sisters to them in broad strokes. Everything on that record came from one afternoon with an executive who loved his artists.
Just let me state for the record.
Atlantic Records had initially declined to release We Are Family as a single. They did not hear it as a hit. The song was pushed through anyway, gained club play, then radio play, and on June 16, 1979, it hit number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart. It peaked at number 2 on the Hot 100. The song the label didn't want became Sister Sledge's signature for the rest of their lives. Lead singer Kathy Sledge recorded her entire vocal in one take. Rodgers and Edwards were so struck by her natural, open performance that they let the sisters loosen the tight production control that defined Chic's own recordings. The result was something warmer, messier, and more human than anything they had made for themselves.
You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel.
We Are Family was inducted into the United States National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress in 2016, preserved as a recording culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. It has been used at the Olympics, at World Cup celebrations, at funerals, at weddings, at family reunions on every continent on Earth. All of it from a conversation in a record executive's office that two producers used to write a song for four women they had never met. Number 5, Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive.
I just walked in to find you here with that sad look upon you.
The president of Gloria Gaynor's record company made one of the most catastrophic decisions in music history. The song had been recorded. The producers, Freddie Perren and Dino Ficaris, the same duo who would later write Reunited for Peaches and Herb, knew immediately that I Will Survive was the superior track. Everyone in the studio knew it, and the label president ordered it buried on the B-side anyway. Gaynor had spent 6 months in hospital with a serious back injury shortly before recording this song. She recorded it on a surgically repaired spine, in genuine pain, and the defiance in the vocal was not an act. I Will Survive was placed behind a cover of a Righteous Brothers song called Substitute, which peaked at number 107 and disappeared without a trace. Then the DJs got hold of the B-side. Studio 54's Richie Cassor flipped the record and started playing I Will Survive on repeat. Club after club picked it up. Radio followed the clubs. Polydor finally flipped the single and released I Will Survive as the A-side. And it went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1979, spending 3 non-consecutive weeks at the top and selling more than 15 million copies worldwide. At the 1980 Grammy Awards, it won Best Disco Recording, the first and only time that category has ever been awarded. The Grammys introduced the category and then eliminated it the very next year. I Will Survive has since been inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, the National Recording Registry, and placed at number 251 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. The B-side that a record executive tried to hide became one of the most celebrated recordings in human history. Number 4, Teddy Pendergrass, Turn Off the Lights.
Something that she told me you wanted.
Teddy Pendergrass had been the drummer, not the singer. When he first joined Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes in 1969, he sat behind the kit and kept the beat. Then one night at a show, Pendergrass jumped from the back of the stage mid-set and started singing, completely unannounced, and Harold Melvin immediately moved him to the front microphone. That raw, enormous baritone was too powerful to keep hidden behind a drum kit.
Darling, touch me.
By By 1975, Pendergrass and Melvin were in open conflict. Over money, over credit, over the fact that fans kept assuming Pendergrass was Harold Melvin because his voice was the one they heard. Pendergrass walked away. The Blue Notes never recovered from losing him. His solo career was nothing short of extraordinary. 5 consecutive platinum albums as a solo artist, a record at the time for any black R&B artist in history. He became famous for his ladies-only concerts, events where men were not admitted, where women in the audience would throw lingerie onto the stage while Pendergrass sang in a voice that seemed physically impossible for any human being to produce. Turn Off the Lights, released in 1979, was the peak of that era. A slow-burning invitation delivered in a baritone so deep and intimate, it felt almost dangerous. It hit the top 5 on the R&B chart and cemented his status as the undisputed king of bedroom soul. 3 years later, in 1982, a car accident on Lincoln Drive in Philadelphia left him paralyzed from the waist down. He never fully regained his physical mobility, but he never stopped singing either. Number 3, Prince, I Wanna Be Your Lover. His debut album had failed, not quietly, catastrophically. For You, released in 1978, had cost Warner Brothers an enormous sum of money because Prince had blown through his entire advance twice during production, obsessing over every detail as a teenager with full producer control. The album stalled at number 163 on the Billboard 200 and barely registered. Warner Brothers called him back in. They needed a hit. He needed to prove he was worth the investment they had made in a 19-year-old kid from Minneapolis who had negotiated an unprecedented deal, 3 albums, full producer credit, before recording a single professional note. For the first and arguably only time in his life, Prince listened to his label. Here's the detail that most people have never heard. I Wanna Be Your Lover was originally written for someone else. Prince had a mad crush, his own words, on a fellow artist named Patrice Rushen, who had contributed synthesizer to his debut album. He offered her the song. She turned it down. He offered her another song he had written about his feelings for her, a track called I Feel For You. She turned that down too. Prince kept both songs. He recorded I Wanna Be Your Lover in a session that lasted a matter of weeks, singing entirely in falsetto, playing most of the instruments himself, and released it in August 1979. It spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot Soul Singles chart and reached number 11 on the Hot 100. The song A Woman Refused became the record that introduced Prince to the mainstream world. I Feel For You, he later gave to Chaka Khan, who took it to number 1 in 1984. The rejected songs ended up changing both their careers. Number 2, Chic, Good Times. Bernard Edwards was late. The band was already in the studio, the track was being laid down, and the bass player had not arrived yet. When Edwards finally walked in and strapped on his instrument, Nile Rodgers yelled at him to just walk the bass line, no preparation, no rehearsal, just feel it. What Edwards played in that unrehearsed moment became one of the most important bass lines ever recorded. Rodgers and Edwards had spent years trying to figure out how to incorporate a walking bass line into their music without losing the chic groove. Every deliberate attempt had come out wrong. The moment it happened accidentally, with Edwards still putting on his bass strap, it was perfect. Good Times was recorded in a handful of takes that same day. The lyrics Rodgers wrote were a commentary on the American economy of the late 1970s. The U.S. was in deep recession, unemployment was rising, and Rodgers chose to respond to that darkness with pure celebration. Some words were borrowed from an old Depression-era standard. Happy days are here again. The irony was intentional.
Just can't wait. The clock keeps turning.
Good Times hit number 1 on the Hot 100 on August 18th, 1979. A few weeks later, a group called the Sugar Hill Gang released a record built almost entirely on Edwards' bass line. Rapper's Delight became the first hip-hop song to receive mainstream radio play. Rogers heard it for the first time in a nightclub and immediately threatened legal action. The credits were changed. Rogers and Edwards received all songwriting royalties. The bass line that Edwards played while he was still walking through the door became the foundation of an entirely new genre of music. It has been sampled in over 200 songs.
Time marches on. Just can't.
Number 1, Michael Jackson, Don't Stop Till You Get It. He had been recording since he was 9 years old. He had been a professional performer for more than a decade. He had charted, toured, appeared on television more times than most adults could count. And by 1979, Michael Jackson had never once controlled his own creative direction in a professional studio setting. Not once. Produced his first album for Epic Records. And Jones agreed on one condition, that Michael would step out of it. That is the power of what 1979 produced. A substitute teacher who became a disco queen. A B-side that won the only Grammy ever given, played by a man who was still walking through the door. A boy who had been performing his whole life and finally got to be himself. These songs changed music.
To immigration, and as you said, it is an undeniable fact that illegal crossings at the southern border have plummeted, a staggering decline. But there are questions about your methods. And so I want to ask
About my message?
Methods. About your methods, how you're
Well, they
accomplishing
seem to
this.
work.
Do you acknowledge that under our law, every single person who gets deported gets a hearing first to make their case?
Well, are we talking about people that are citizens of our country or not?
No, you're not deporting citizens at this point.
Well, let me ask you, did they get hearings when Biden allowed 21 million, because I think the number is 20 million people to flow into our country? He had 21 million people that came into our country through a stupid open border, and they were prisoners, and they were people that you don't want in many cases in our country, right? They came from all over the world. They came from the Congo, they came from South, they came from all over the world. We're talking about some of the roughest countries in the world they had here, including terrorists, by the way. Now,
But the
did
law-
we give them a hearing when they came in?
Well, the law requires that every single person who is going to be deported gets a hearing first. Do you acknowledge that?
I'll have to ask the lawyers about that. All I can say is this: if you're going to have 21 million people, and if we have to get a lot of them out because they're criminals, we're going to have to act fast. We can't. Do you think we can give 21 million trials? Let's say each trial takes 2 weeks. Is that what you want us to do?
The law
Give
is the
21
law,
million?
sir. The law is the law, and you're
the law
sworn
doesn't
to
say anything
uphold it.
about trials.
No, not trials, hearings. I said
These
hearings.
people came in, they're not citizens, they came in illegally, they came into our country
Right.
illegally,
And
we
there's-
have to get them out.
There's a legal process for that.
I can't, sure, and we follow the legal process. I can't have a trial, a major
I'm
trial
not
for
saying
every
that.
person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country.
Right, so
we have to get them out,
They're
and we have to
bad
get them
guys,
out fast.
Really bad guys, but in our
So I like Trump's saying, I don't think the problem in like a few more months is going to be the people from the outside. The problem is not going to be the people from the outside. It's the people like him that's inside the country that claim to report, but they're reporting false and fake lies and fake headlines. That's all they chase. They've been looking for a headline for the longest on Trump, and he's very blunt on his stance on the border. And that's why a lot of people still love Trump. That's why a lot of people are still going to stick there. And Trump's first 100 days, his ratings are at an all-time low. Millions of people voted for Trump. They know how he works. First, he shows you and tells you what he's going to do, and then he does it. But people want to snap finger and it's done. That's not how it works, man. Let's keep going.
country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came in illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have to get them out. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Venezuelans.
They get whatever my lawyers say.
Right. All right, let's talk about the Venezuelans. You deported more than 200 Venezuelans to that prison in El Salvador. You say they're violent, they're gang members, they're terrorists. Many of them don't have a criminal record at all.
Well,
but I want to.
I'm not so sure about that. If you take a look,
I want to read you something.
Excuse me. When you look at those people, they were violent people. They were violent people.
But many of them don't have a criminal record
Go
at this
ahead.
point.
I don't know.
That's what you say. Oh, it's based on their lawyer, what their lawyers have said. Okay. Joe Rogan said this. Joe Rogan, one of the leading podcasters, Trump supporter, about the deportation of Venezuelans. He said, quote, rounding up gang members and shipping them to El Salvador with no due process, he said, was dangerous, and added, quote, we got to be careful that we don't become monsters while we're fighting monsters. Is Joe Rogan right?
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, we want to be careful, and we are careful. We're doing something that has to be done. We have a country that's very sick. Joe Biden, and it's not him because I don't even think he knew what the hell was happening, but the people around.
Even when he agrees with Rogan, he shows you that he's still in control. You know, that's not manipulate you or anything. That's not damage control. He's being blunt. He's showing you exactly who's in control. We're doing it my way. We need these people out of here. So yeah, we're being careful, but we still need these people out of here, guys. That just shows you every time. That's leadership. That's literally leadership. Let's keep going, guys.
Him are vicious people, and what they've done to the country is unbelievable. They've allowed 21 million people to pour into our country. Many of these people are criminals. They've allowed you mentioned Venezuela, the jails of Venezuela to be emptied into the United States. Do you know Venezuela crime is way down? Way down. You know why? Because their criminals are now living happily in the United States of America, and we're getting them out. And I was elected to get them out, and we're getting them out.
Under the law.
And we're getting them out fast, and we're getting them out legally. Now, in some cases, we have judges. In some cases, they're radical left judges. What happened the other day where a judge was protecting a criminal was horrible. And I think she's got big problems, frankly. And there are a couple of them like that.
I want to talk about one
Wait a
man.
minute.
Yep.
We have to be treated fairly by judges. And we're not being treated fairly by all judges.
Oh, that's a subject. So you're saying that you don't like some of the rulings, some of the court orders?
I think the rulings will be overturned, yeah.
All right, well, let me ask you about one man and one court order. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's the Salvadoran man who crossed into this country illegally, but who is under a protective order that he not be sent back to El Salvador. Your government sent him back to El Salvador and acknowledged in court that was a mistake. And now the Supreme Court has upheld an order that you must return him facilitate his return to the United States. What are you doing to comply?
Well, the lawyer that said it was a mistake was here a long time, was not appointed by us, should not have said that, and just so you understand, the person that you're talking about, you know, you're making this person sound, this is a MS-13 gang member, a tough cookie, been in lots of skirmishes, beat the hell out of his wife, and the wife was petrified to even talk about him, okay? This is not an innocent, wonderful gentleman from Maryland.
I'm not saying he's a good guy. It's about the rule of law. The order from the Supreme Court stands,
You came into our country illegally.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
But the court has ordered you to facilitate that.
I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers that don't want to do this.
But the buck stops in this office.
No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
Supreme Court says what the law is.
Listen, I was elected to take care of a problem. It was a unforced error that was made by a very incompetent man, a man that turned out to be incompetent, that you always said was wonderful, great genius, right? And now you find out, all of the media now, they're saying what a mistake they made. A man who was grossly incompetent allowed us to have open borders where millions of people flowed in. I campaigned on that issue. I wouldn't say it was my number one issue, but it was pretty close.
Right up there.
I campaigned on that issue. I've done an amazing job. I have closed borders. He said you couldn't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it. It would never happen. Well, it happened, and it happened very quickly. Wait a minute. When we have criminals, murderers, criminals in this country.
And why isn't he talking about the actual bad things that he did? He said, why don't you, even after everything Trump said, he said, why don't you call him and Get him back here. Why would you want that person roaming the country? He already did wrong. He committed crimes. Let him face the wrath of the law. I mean, you want Trump to face the wrath of the law, and they threw up all these falsifying documents. It's like they only want Trump to be the only person to go to jail and get in trouble for anything, even stuff he didn't commit. But you have Letitia James on there saying she's married to her father? But no one's talking about that. You're talking about Kilmar Garcia, the dude that's over here punching and beating on his wife. Come on, man. He's already here legally. Oh, my God. Let's keep going.
We have to get him out, and we're doing it.
By law.
And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the
do that.
letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshop.
That was Photoshop, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think it
agree
was
to disagree.
Photoshop? Well,
Here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but
they're in your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
All right, we'll take a look.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested. I want to turn, I was just in Rome, and to that moving photograph of you and President Zelensky sitting in St. Peter's Basilica talking peace. It went around the world.
Sure.
Take us into that moment.
Well, look, the Ukraine is a very serious, very tough situation. And this is Biden's war. This is not my war, but I want to see if I can solve it, because probably close to 5,000 young soldiers a week are being killed, Russian and Ukrainian. We also spend a tremendous amount of money in Ukraine.
So Trump didn't start a war. He's trying to stop one. This is all Biden's chaos if you're not up to date on that. Let's keep going.
And Europe should be spending much more than us. They're not. They're spending much less. It's been badly handled by the Biden administration. It's been badly handled all the way around.
That moment.
The moment was a moment of solace, in a sense, because tremendous numbers of people are dying. A lot of his people are dying. They're being killed. And I feel very badly about it. That's a war that would have never happened if I were president. And it didn't happen for 4 years. It was never even a thought of it happening.
It does feel like something's happening after that meeting with Zelensky in St. Peter's. You posted this on social media. There was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas and cities and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe...
Well, that was part of my post, but you're right. That was a part of a post.
And it says, it makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along.
Yeah, that's possible. Sure.
He
could be tapping me along a little bit. I would say that he would like to stop the war. I think that if it weren't for me, I think he'd want to take over the whole country, personally. I always felt. So when I left, there wasn't even a chance that this would happen. When Biden got involved, I won't say whether or not he handled it properly, but obviously it wasn't good, because the war started. Putin went in, the war started. I believe that Putin wanted to get all of Ukraine once he went in. And I think part of the reason he went in, he saw what happened in Afghanistan, how incompetently Milley and all these guys handled that. It was one of the greatest embarrassments of our lifetimes, but maybe in the history of our country. Okay, so Putin went in. I think Putin wanted all of Ukraine. Right. I think if I didn't win the election, he would have gotten all of Ukraine. I think he would have taken all of Ukraine. I think his first choice... Never with me. He would have never gone in. With this group of losers, he went in, he saw what happened in Afghanistan. He said, wow, this is my chance. Because it was always the apple of his eye. I talked to him. Ukraine was the apple of his eye. I think he wanted the whole country.
You said for
And
months
because
that-
of me, I do believe that
Yeah.
he's willing to stop the fighting. Don't
You
forget,
think he wants
this
peace?
is a.
You think Vladimir Putin wants peace?
I think he does. Yes, I think
Still?
he does. I think
Even
because
with the
of
raining missiles
I
on-
think he
This is
really
wow.
his dream was to take over the whole country. I think because of me, he's not going to do that.
Do you trust
I
him?
think-
Do you trust him?
I don't trust you. I don't trust a lot of people. I don't trust you. Look at you. You come in all shooting for bear. You're so happy to do the interview.
I am
And then
happy.
you start hitting me with fake questions. You start telling me that a guy whose hand is covered
All
with
right,
a
we're back to
tattoo doesn't have the tattoo. You know.
All right.
I mean, you're being dishonest.
No, I'm not.
Let me
No, I
just
am
tell
not,
you,
sir.
I don't trust a lot of people. But I do think this. I think that let's say he respects me. And I believe because of me, he's not going to take over the whole. But his decision, his choice
He just told the ABC guy that he doesn't trust him right to his face. This is not scripted. You 100% can't make this up.
would be to take over all of Ukraine. It's a war that never should have happened. It did happen because of incompetent people.
Last question on this.
But it never should have happened.
If there's no peace deal, will the U.S. cut off military aid to you?
I don't want to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you whether or
That
not I would
sounds-
or not. I want to leave that as a big fat secret because I don't want to ruin a negotiation. But
I'd be worried
I
if
will
I
tell
were
you, I
Ukrainian.
was not happy when I saw Putin shooting missiles into a few towns and cities. And that was not something that I like seeing. And I thought it was inappropriate. But I think the whole war is inappropriate.
Okay.
Again, it's a war that shouldn't have happened. This is a war that if the election weren't rigged, and it was totally rigged, the 2020 election, if it weren't rigged, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have had the embarrassment of
Got
Afghanistan.
it.
You wouldn't have October 7th with Israel. You wouldn't have had any of the problems that you
Thank
have
you.
right now.
I want to ask one
and
question.
you wouldn't have had inflation either.
All right. I want to ask one question about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. There's a lot of turmoil at the Pentagon right now. There's the signal chat with his wife on it where he's discussing that attack in Yemen. There's another signal chat discussing the attack on Yemen. There's a reporter accidentally involved. You said the other day that you had a talk with the secretary. Did you take him to the woodshed?
I had a talk with him, and whatever I said, I probably wouldn't be inclined to tell you. But we had a good talk. He's a talented guy. He's young. He's smart, highly educated. And I think he's going to be a very good hopefully a great defense secretary, but he'll be a very good defense secretary.
You have
maybe great.
100% confidence in
I
Pete
don't have
Hegseth.
100% confidence in anything. Okay, anything. Do I have 100%? It's a stupid question. Look,
It's a pretty important
I
position.
have no. You don't have 100%.
But guys, that right there is why I love Trump, because he's not selling 100% perfection to anyone. You know, he's telling them he's not perfect. He may mess up, but at the same time, he has all these millions and millions of votes for a reason. Guys, people live through the poor times, the poor inflation, the poor crime going on, so much poorness everywhere. And people live through that, and then all of it just seemed to be way better when Trump was.
And I do think Ilhan Omar is in a lot of trouble. She's got that big question mark on how her net worth jumped up to, at least 6 million and then went back down to zero over a 1 year period.
So are you saying that Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman from Minnesota, that she was getting federal money and feeding it into these corrupt Somali networks, her cronies?
I think one of the projects she requested proved to be a fraudulent Somali scheme.
Now, we have reached out to Congresswoman Omar's team for comment. We've yet to hear back. We'll let you know if that changes. Meanwhile, a former state employee who was placed on administrative leave is now accusing the Walz administration of ignoring fraud and intimidating whistleblowers. Watch this.
The smear campaign starts where you are told that you are racist, and then your job duties are lessened and lessened until you basically have no job duties. There is just a continuous effort to stifle you, to shut you up. And it is impossible to overcome. So to say that leadership was not aware, or the governor was not aware, I can tell you that is absolutely false.
Kaylee.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned the good people of Minnesota. People deserve better representation than those who will defraud them.
Yes, and for anyone to say, oh, that's a Republican activist. No, Faye Bernstein, the whistleblower, is a Democrat. And she saw this, and she had a problem with it, because anyone should have a problem with taxpayer money going to fraudsters. And she has been bold and stood up and has repeatedly said the governor knew about this. How could he not? We have reports. I believe they're Inspector General reports, or at least government documents going back to before he came to office. I'm looking at data from 2015, 35 childcare facilities flagged, 2016, 41, 2017, 42 flagged. He comes into office at the beginning of 2019, Governor Walz. There's been ample warning at this point from whistleblowers, from government agencies. And what does he do? He shuts down the government agency that Jay Swanson is working at, and doesn't take this seriously until a young 24, 25-year-old Nick Shirley comes in with a camera. Thank God for Nick Shirley bringing attention to this, and now there needs to be accountability.
Joe?
Amazing about Nick Shirley, right? All the resources of CBS and ABC and all these networks, and one guy with one camera just completely blows this thing open.
Well, he's not doing it for money.
No, he's not.
he's not sticking to a budget and doing all these sideline things. He's got one goal.
Yeah.
Go find the truth.
And when you only have a one-person crew, the budget's basically Arby's, right? And maybe Waffle House, and you're good to go.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take that too. A pleasant reminder, by the way, that Tim Walz was a couple of swing states away from being a heartbeat away from the presidency, jazz hands. Could you imagine him running the country? That would be utterly remarkable to me. And I just wonder, you know, when you look at Ilhan Omar and you look at Nancy Pelosi and you look at all these people in Congress that come into this job. In Ilhan Omar's case, she was in debt. And then she was suddenly worth $6 million. And then that's gone away again. And people see Nancy Pelosi making hundreds of millions of dollars in the stock market. No one likes this. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. I just wonder, we always hear about, you know, we're really close to this person getting prosecuted. This person's going to get away to jail. And it never happens, right? So my eyes glaze over a little bit when I hear that there's going to be prosecutions. Let me see someone once be held accountable truly, because it doesn't seem like it happens very often.
Well, and Emily,
What if one of the biggest government fraud investigations in recent memory reaches the highest levels of politics? New allegations are raising questions about federal funding, whistleblower testimony, and whether elected officials ignored warning signs for years. Some commentators now believe more investigations and possibly legal action could be on the horizon. But what evidence actually exists, and what remains political speculation? Today we're breaking down the latest claims, the whistleblower accusations, and why this story is attracting national attention. Let's get into it.
Hearing from whistleblowers of both sides of the aisle that say it's not just should have known. He absolutely knew. There is now incontrovertible evidence that this individual knew about it and yet let it happen. And I think that we will absolutely see criminal charges. I think there's also a ton of civil suits to be had. I think nonprofits have an absolute standing to sue. And there's zero, by the way, shelter from office duties that were outside of your actual position, meaning the governor and his cronies are not shielded from liability because this isn't the normal course of their duties. Fraud is not normal course. Fraud is misconduct. Looking the other way while your state racks up billions in dollars of fraudulent money that should have gone to needy families or children with and nutrition funds and so much, and instead went to Somaliland and terrorists or cronies' fat pockets. I mean, there's a whole host, I think, because the longer that they take, obviously within reason, it will ensure that those building blocks are solid, because at the end of the day, we do want to see accountability.